It's a rainy night here in Virginia. We're getting ready to take our annual summertime trip to Lake El Salto, and I decided time to get my reels ready. We're about 5 days out, and I thought maybe people would be interested in anticipation of your personal trip to El Salto to see how I go about the process. The first question you're probably going to have is how many reels do I need to bring? And that's ultimately a personal decision. For me, you're never going to want fewer than 4 rods in the boat. If you're out deep, you might want to throw a swim bait, a Texas rig, a crankbait, and maybe a big spinnerbait. If you're up shallow, you have a topwater, a Senko, a rattling bait, and a chatterbait. On the flip side, you're not going to want to have more than 6 rods in the boat. I just think anything more than that is absolute overkill. 5 is the ideal number. Truth be told, I usually end up with 6 in the boat. I realize it results in a little bit of clutter, but to me it's worth it just to have that many options and to not have to retie a lot. So let's talk about also what kind of reels you want to bring. Now, personally, I've never used a spinning reel down there. I know a lot of people do. It's fine if that's your choice, but for me, it's bait casting reels. And in addition to having 6, I need to have a couple spares, because if I want to have 6 reels, if a drag system goes to crap, or someone steps on a handle, or some other malfunction occurs, I need to have a spare. So I bring 8 reels. Now, we keep a lot of tackle down there, so I don't need to have a lot of tackle in my luggage other than my reels. That leaves a lot of space, but under no circumstances would I recommend that you have fewer than 6. And let me discuss how I choose the ones that I'm bringing down. First of all, you want to have your newest and sturdiest and best maintained reels when you go, because these fish are super strong. They will take advantage of any problem you have. Any weak link in your armor, they're going to nail it every time. So you really need to bring your best quality gear. They're going to destroy lesser quality gear. For me, I realized you could bring 6 150 sized 7-to-1 bait casting reels and you'd probably be fine. For someone like me, I may be overthinking it, but I want to have a little more variety than that just so I can optimize every situation. And that starts with some larger reels. For years, I've used this Tranx 300 to crank, particularly to crank a 10XD. Now, you can do that on a 200 size reel, but if you're throwing a 10XD with the wind, you can spool that reel. So I've used this Tranx, but in recent years, I moved away from that. And here's the reason why. The Tranx comes in 2 gear ratios, the 300. It comes in a 5/8-to-1 and a 7/6-to-1. But the 7/6-to-1 is only available with a power handle. If you want this double paddle handle, you have to go with the slower one. These fish in the summertime, they want a crankbait moving at a pretty good clip, and I've kind of realized that I have to overwork the reel when I use the 5/8-to-1. So what I've done is I've replaced it with a Shimano Curado 300. I've had one that I've used for several years. I just got a new one for this trip. It's a 6/6-to-1. I feel like that's going to take over my cranking duties. Now, the Tranx, as I said before, is a bulletproof reel. So I still want to bring this 300, but what I'm going to use it for is swim baits offshore when I want to drag a big soft swim bait, or maybe if I want to throw a glide bait, or even an Alabama rig. I have this Tranx. It's the most bulletproof reel that I've found on the bait casting side of things. Really love it. It's still making the trip. I think this is the 9th or 10th trip it's made, and it still gets fished at home as well with minimal maintenance, and it's an incredible reel. As a result of that, I've also gotten a Tranx 200. Now I'm going to load this one up with braid, and that's something I didn't talk about was line choices on those reels. Believe it or not, on the Curado 300, I'm going to crank with 30-pound braid. I know that goes against the orthodoxy, but it really works well for me down there. I can sling that crankbait a mile, it gets down very quickly, and I can feel just about everything. If you need fluorocarbon, go ahead. I am going to use fluorocarbon, probably 20-pound test, on the Tranx for throwing swim baits. On this Tranx 200, though, I'm going to throw 50-pound braid. And here's the deal with that. I'm going to throw 50-pound braid, and it's going to be used for several different things. One is large topwaters, like rats or the big whopper plopper. And the other one is for flipping jigs in deep trees. This reel can just take an absolute beating. So I'm going to put the 50-pound braid on it and go to town. Another new reel that I got is the newest version of the Revo Rocket. This is 10-to-1. And I know some of you are saying 10-to-1 is just way too fast. Well, in the earlier iterations when they had 9-to-1 and even 8-to-1, I thought it was too fast. I've realized that there are situations, I've been using this one at home to pitch a Senko to docks. I feel like I can make 20% more casts per day as a result of having this super high gear ratio. The other thing about it is some of the earlier iterations, you didn't have the torque as a result of that. You had to give up somewhere. This reel seems to be pretty damn solid. I'm real impressed with it. I'm going to use it probably to throw Carolina rig, a top water, a Senko down there. That 10-to-1 speed is pretty amazing. The other reel that I've just added, and this is pretty exciting, is the new flagship Daiwa Steez. And this is an 8.5-to-1 reel. It's pretty expensive. It's a beautiful piece of machinery. I just got it. I haven't fished it yet, but it's their flagship reel. Going to take it down there. Again, this is one that I'll probably use for a topwater and for a Senko. Of these two fast reels, the 10-to-1 and the 8.5-to-1, one of them will have fluorocarbon on it for throwing baits that go under the surface, and the other will have monofilament or copolymer on it. Both 17 to 20 pound test, and that'll be for throwing a topwater bait, possibly for a spinner bait as well. Next two reels are my all-arounds. These are the Shimano Curado 150 DC. Just an amazing reel. It makes a crazy little whirring noise, but that's the computer control going into action. This reel, you can throw a jerkbait with it, you can throw a small topwater, you can throw a weightless Senko directly into the wind, and you have to work to make it backlash. They're incredible. I normally bring 3 down, but I'm only bringing 2 this time, and there's kind of a sneaky little reason for that. That's because I'm bringing this reel as my 8th one. This, you may not recognize it. It comes from Academy Sports. It's their new H2OX Premier, $49, which, as compared to some of those other reels, it's less than a tenth as much as the Steez. It's probably about a 7th or an 8th as much as the Curado 300. I've been fishing this all spring. For $49, this is the best bargain I've ever found. It may not last more than a couple years, but it's worth it. Go out and buy some. I can throw further with this reel than any others I have. With minimal adjustments, it casts really well, does not backlash. Drag system seems incredibly good too. Really impressed with this. Going to put it to the test on some El Salto fish, and I'm pretty sure it'll be up to the test. Okay, now that I've showed you the reels that I'm going to use, I'm going to show you how I bring them down there. I have this old Shimano reel bag. You can see it's segmented for different reels. That's the ideal solution. It really holds things well. You can throw some socks in there, some soft plastics in there, and it'll really protect your reels well. But it's kind of bulky. I only use this when I'm going on a driving trip and I need to bring extra reels. For this purpose, it's not ideal. It just takes up too much space in my luggage, and that's space that could be better used for a minimal amount of clothing or for some extra baits. What I'm going to use instead is this gimme bag I got from Bass years ago. It's made a ton of trips. It's peeling. The zippers are coming apart, but it holds 8-9 reels perfectly in it. I can throw that in my carry-on. It fits in. I can pad it with some socks. I can pad it with some soft plastics, and the reels will be fine. I do recommend that you either get some of these neoprene covers for your reels. Some reels come with them. Sometimes when you buy a reel at Tackle Warehouse, they'll let you buy one of these for $2.99. Alternatively, some reels come with a bag like this. You can even use the bag from a bottle of Crown Royal if you go through some of those. And if you're a teetotaler or you don't buy those, use socks. Wrap your reels in your socks and protect them as much as you can. Finally, be sure to put fresh line on all your reels. I don't use anything less than 17 down there. I use a lot of 17 and 20, a lot of 30 and 50 pound braid. Be sure to strip off all your old line, put the new stuff on, because these fish will find any weakness in your arsenal. I use this Berkeley line stripper. I used to have a saltwater model, which was a little bit bulkier and a little bit faster. After about 20 years, it crapped out. You can get one of these at Tackle Warehouse. It costs $16. You can either buy or make an attachment for your power drill that will do something similar. Bad thing about that is it's tough to fit in your luggage. You don't want to be bringing a drill into another country. I think it just looks weird and arouses suspicion. So I use this. As you can see, you thread the line in through this hole. In a matter of seconds, your reel is completely stripped. Done. I have my 8 reels plus at least 6 or 7 for Hannah to do. That's going to be a tremendous time saver. Remember, when you're going down to Mexico, bring your reels in your carry-on. You want to make sure you have them with you all the time. At Anglers Inn, they have great St. Croix rods that you can borrow free of charge, but you need to bring your own reels. You want to make sure they get there with you. We have had some issues coming home in recent years, so on the way home we have been checking them through. Get them there in one piece. I promise you it will make a huge difference if you bring the right reels with fresh line. And think about it a little bit. You don't have to go out and buy all new reels. You don't have to buy a $600 reel. But if you get the best ones you have, keep them in the best possible shape, you're loaded for bear, and that's what you go down there for, is big fish and lots of them.